everyone. Welcome to my podcast, Love and Courageous. I'm your host, Demetris. And for today's episode, I'll be speaking about Donald Trump's cabinet team. So, the cabinet consists of the vice president and 15 executive departments. So, I'm going to go into each person that Donald Trump has elected, but also who each person is as well. So for Treasury Secretary, Donald Trump selected Scott Bessent. The Treasury Secretary is the country's chief financial officer who is responsible for making recommendations on both domestic and international financial policies, including taxes and the economy. They also manage the country's debt. So who is Scott Bessent? He is the founder of the Key Square Capital Management, formerly worked for George Soros. He is also an advisor to Trump and a donor to his campaign. He will become the first LGBTQ plus person to lead the Treasury. Also, he supports Donald Trump's proposed tariff hikes. In a Wall Street Journal, he argued that Trump's approach to energy production would drive more investment, supported fair trade, made the case for overhauling bank lending regulations, and pushed to reform the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, so when it comes to Secretary of State, Donald Trump elected Marco Rubio. So the Secretary of State is the country's top diplomat and the President's chief foreign affairs advisor. So here's some things about Marco Rubio. So he was a former Trump critic, has represented Florida in the Senate for more than a decade. He is the son of Cuban immigrants and has emphasized his working class roots to voters. Serves as vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee and sits on the Appropriations and Foreign Relations Committees, where he has focused in part on the rise of China, a vocal supporter of Israel, and an opponent of Iran. He has rejected calls for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war, and also supporting aiding Ukraine to defend themselves to the extent we can afford and to the extent we can sustain it. On November the 6th, he called for Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the resulting war to be brought to a conclusion. When it comes to the Director of National Intelligence, Donald Trump selected Tulsi Gabbard. The Director of National Intelligence is the President's top intelligence advisor, oversees all 18 of the nation's intelligence agencies. So here's something about Tulsi Gabbard. So she was a former Democratic Congresswoman and presidential candidate. She left the party and became independent back in 2022 before joining the GOP this year. She is a Trump loyalist who stumped for the former president during his re-election campaign. She is the first Hindu and American Samoan elected to Congress. She represented Hawaii in the U.S. House from 2013 and 2021. She has also made harsh critique of Biden and other Democrats. She is a regular commentator for conservative media. Also, she is a combat veteran. She is a former lieutenant colonel in the Armed Reserves. Also critical of U.S. support for Ukraine, she has expressed pro-Russian conspiracy theories that align with the Kremlin's own talking points, voiced support for the brutal regime of Syrian president, and regularly criticized U.S. military interventions overseas. When it comes to Defense Secretary, Donald Trump did select Pete Hegseth as his Defense Secretary. So Defense Secretary is Defense Department Chief policymaker and advisor. Here are a few things about Pete Hegseth. He is one of Trump's most vocal defenders and a Fox News personality. Before he joined Fox, he was a major in the Army National Guard and served in Iraq and Afghanistan, earning 2 Bronze Stars. His nomination was met with some controversy. A Yale service member once flagged him as a potential insider threat for a tattoo associated with white supremacist groups. He has likened efforts to address extremism among armed forces as a purge. He has vocally opposed to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the military. He shared on the Sean Ryan Show podcast that he believes so-called woke generals should be fired. He also disapproves of women serving in combat. According to a 2023 Defense Department report, women make up 17.5% of the active duty force. He also has been accused of sexually assaulting a woman back in 2017 in California. No charges were brought because he reportedly paid the accuser a settlement, which he said he did to protect his job at Fox News. When it comes to the Attorney General, Donald Trump selected Pam Bondi. The Attorney General is a chief advisor on legal matters and oversees the Department of Justice, which includes DEA, Federal Bureau of Prisons, and U.S. Attorneys, FBI, and other operations. Pam Bondi is a longtime Trump ally who replaced Matt Gaetz as the new nominee for Attorney General after he withdrew his name. She served as Florida Attorney General from 2011 to 2019, and she was the first woman elected to the position. Now, she also was a part of Trump's defense team during his first impeachment trial in the Senate. She also served on the President's Commission on Opioids during Trump's first term. She also works for the America First Policy Institute, launched in 2021 by former Trump officials to promote his policies and agenda. When it comes to Labor Secretary, Donald Trump selected Lori Chavez DeRimmer. The Labor Secretary oversees the nation's laws and regulations that address workplace conditions, as well as unemployment benefits, wages, and other work-related services. Now, here are some things about Lori Chavez DeRimmer. She lost her re-election bid to represent Oregon's 5th Congressional District. She is the first Republican woman from the state to serve in the House of Representatives and a rare GOP supporter of the Protecting the Rights to Organize Act, also known as the PRO Act, a proposed bill that seeks to make it easier for workers to unionize. Also in Congress, she is a member of the House Committee on Education and the Workforce. When it comes to Commerce Secretary, Donald Trump selected Howard Lutnick. The Commerce Secretary oversees the agency tasked with promoting the nation's economic growth and would be responsible for implementing some of Trump's campaign pledges that include some of the steeper tariffs that he has announced. The department includes the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the U.S. Census Bureau, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Here are some things that you should know about Howard Lutnick. He is a billionaire chairman. He is the CEO of the financial services firm Cantor Fitzgerald, a co-chair of Trump's transition team during Trump Madison Square Garden rally. Howard Lutnick told the crowd that the former president's use of America First means American citizens employed first. He also said Trump will balance the federal budget, a feat that has only happened twice in the last 6 decades. He also played a prominent role in post-9/11 relief efforts. His brother was among the 658 Cantor Fitzgerald employees killed at the World Trade Center in September 11. He created the Cantor Fitzgerald Relief Fund, which continued to assist wounded service members and people who have been affected by acts of terrorism, natural disasters, and other emergencies. He also sits on the board of the 9/11 Memorial and Museum in New York. When it comes to Homeland Security Secretary, Donald Trump selected Kristi Noem. The Homeland Security Secretary oversees a sprawling department that oversees border and immigration enforcement, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Transportation Security Administration, and the U.S. Secret Service, among other public safety agencies. Here are some things you should know about Kristi Noem. She is a staunch Trump loyalist. She was once viewed as a possible vice presidential running mate. She is an immigration, hardliner and will play a key role in carrying out Trump's pledges to secure the U.S.-Mexico border and deport millions of undocumented immigrants. She's been the South Dakota governor since 2019. As governor, she deployed the state National Guard troops to the southern border, a move critics call a political stunt. She also been banned from most Native American reservations in South Dakota after suggesting tribal leaders benefit from Mexico drug cartels. And she previously was the state at-large member of the U.S. House. When it comes to CIA director, the person that is the head of the Central Intelligence Agency oversees efforts to collect and analyze foreign intelligence that help the president and other government heads make policy decisions around national security. The CIA director reports to the director of national intelligence. So Donald Trump selected John Ratcliffe as his CIA director. Here are some things about John Ratcliffe. He has been in Donald Trump's cabinet before. He was previously the director of national intelligence in the final year of Trump's first term. He represented Texas in the U.S. House from 2015 to 2020, serving as a member of the Chamber's Intelligence Committee. And in 2020, he came under bipartisan criticism and concerns that he had possibly inflated his resume and wasn't qualified for the job. When it comes to Health and Human Services Secretary, who is responsible to promote public health and prevent diseases. It oversees drug, vaccine, and food safety at the Food and Drug Administration, as well as medical research at the National Institutes of Health and Healthcare Programs through the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Donald Trump selected Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the Health and Human Services Secretary. Here are a few things about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So he was a former presidential candidate. Kennedy, who is the nephew of former President John F. Kennedy, originally ran for president in the Democratic primary this year before running as an independent. He is a promoter of vaccine misinformation. He has spread misinformation and falsehoods about vaccines and their safety, including the heavily debunked claim that they cause autism. He also questioned the need for fluoride in public water system, even though fluoride at a safe level helps reduce overall tooth decay. When it comes to Agriculture Secretary, who is responsible for managing public policy on food, nutrition, agriculture, natural resources, and rural development. The USDA also oversees the U.S. Forest Service and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as food stamps. When it comes to Agriculture Secretary, Donald Trump selected Brooke Rollins. Here are a few things about Brooke Rollins, another returning member of the cabinet. She served as Trump's domestic policy chief during his first term. She is the president and CEO of the Trump-aligned America First Policy Institute. She also graduated from Texas A&M University, sharing a degree in agricultural development. When it comes to Transportation Secretary, whose job is to oversee the federal transportation policy, improvements, and safety, along with agencies such as the Federal Aviation Administration, the Federal Railroad Administration, and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Donald Trump selected Sean Duffy. Sean Duffy, who is a former congressman, represented Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives from 2011 to 2019, a former reality star. Before going into politics, he appeared on the 1997 MTV reality series The Real World Boston. A year later, he met his now wife on the set of MTV's Road Rules All Stars. He also is a past winner of the Lumberjack World Championships, and recently he was a co-host on the Fox business show, The Bottom Line. When it comes to Veterans Affairs Secretary, who oversees the nation's largest integrated healthcare network, which includes 1,255 facilities that serve 9 million enrolled veterans annually. The Veterans Affairs Secretary also maintains more than 150 national cemeteries. Donald Trump selected Doug Collins as the Veterans Affairs Secretary. Doug Collins, who has a master's degree in divinity from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, was a U.S. Navy chaplain in the late 1980s. After the 9/11 attack, he enlisted with the U.S. Air Force Reserve as a chaplain and deployed to Iraq for 5 months in 2008. He is currently a colonel in the Air Force Reserve. He rose from the Georgia State Legislature to win elections to the U.S. House back in 2012. He also ran for Senate in 2020, but lost in an all-party election to GOP incumbent Senator Kelly Loeffler and Democrat Raphael Warnock, who won the runoff election. Doug Collins left the House in 2021. And as ranking member of the U House Judiciary Committee, Doug Collins vigorously defended Trump during special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into whether Russia influenced the 2016 election. When it comes to Interior Secretary, the department that oversees about 500 million acres of public land and the fossil fuels and minerals underground. The department also manages U.S. national parks, monuments, wildfire refuges, and relations with 574 federally recognized Native American tribes and Alaska Native entities. Trump also said the North Dakota governor will also chair a new National Energy Council that will comprise all agencies and departments involved in all forms of American energy. So Donald Trump selected Doug Burgum as the Interior Secretary. Doug Burgum is an executive turned politician. The former software company executive ran for president back in 2024 Republican primary, but dropped out in December 2023 and began appearing at Trump's rallies and fundraising events. He was also under consideration as Trump's running mate before J.D. Vance was chosen. He is known as a champion of oil and gas drilling and has urged increased energy and mineral production on U.S. lands. Also known for cutting carbon, so he was first elected governor in 2016 and re-elected in 2020. Sets a goal for North Dakota to become carbon neutral by 2030 without cutting back on fossil fuel use. When it comes to Energy Secretary, the Energy Secretary oversees energy, environment, and nuclear growth, research, and security. The department manages the national stockpile of nuclear weapons materials and nuclear waste. Donald Trump selected Chris Wright as the Energy Secretary. Chris Wright is a businessman and donor, an engineer, and is the CEO of Liberty Energy. He's also a Trump donor, and he supports fracking and has been a vocal critic of efforts to fight climate change. He will also serve on the newly created National Energy Council to be led by Interior Secretary Design Doug Burgum. When it comes to Education Secretary, the Secretary of Education oversees all federal school-related policies and regulations for kindergarten up to 12th grade and higher education. That includes enforcing federal civil rights protections for students, including access to services for low-income and special education students, and billions in funding to schools, colleges, and universities. It's also in charge of student loans. Donald Trump selected Linda McMahon as the Education Secretary. Linda McMahon has already served as a cabinet member. This will be her second time in a Trump administration. She led the Small Business Administration from 2017 to 2019. She ran twice for the Senate in Connecticut, but lost to Senator Richard Blumenthal and Chris Murphy in 2010 and 2012. The Democratic senators praised her as they gave the formal introduction during her Senate confirmation hearing back in 2017. Now, she does not have a long track record on education. The former WWE chief executive served a year on Connecticut's Board of Education in 2009. She previously supported school choice. When it comes to Environmental Protection Agency administrator, the head of the Environmental Protection Agency leads the country efforts on the environment, including enforcing laws and overseeing regulations, including on how the country addresses climate change. The agency operates on a $10 billion budget and includes more than 17,000 employees. Donald Trump selected Lee Zeldin as the Environmental Protection Agency administrator. Lee Zeldin was a former congressman, represented Long Island in the House from 2015 to 2023. He lost a bid for New York governor back in 2022. He is also a staunch ally of Trump, who has called climate change a hoax and argued that addressing it hurts business. He criticized the Biden administration for choosing to cancel Keystone XL pipeline. He also opposed to rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement without holding bad actors like China accountable. Lee Zeldin top priorities, according to a post that he made on Twitter, also known as X now, says, I quote, restore U.S. energy dominance, revitalize our auto industry to bring back American jobs and make the U.S. the global leader of AI. We will do so while protecting access to clean air and water. When it comes to housing and urban development, the head of Housing and Urban Development oversees housing laws and investigates housing discrimination, along with overseeing a number of housing-related programs. That includes home ownership and rental assistance. Donald Trump selected Scott Turner. Scott Turner, who is a former NFL player and was the executive director of the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council during Trump's first administration. Now, Scott Turner served 2 terms in Texas House of Representatives back in 2013 until 2017. He is also a pastor at Prestonwood Baptist Church in Texas and at the America First Policy Institute, founded by former Trump officials. After his first term in office, Scott Turner has led the Center for Education Opportunity. Now, when it comes to the Department of Government Efficiency, Donald Trump selected Elon Musk, who is a billionaire, and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy to lead the newly created Department of Government Efficiency. And that is all the information that I have. And the only thing I really gotta say is that, look, we're screwed because most of the people that he selected are billionaires, but also they're not even qualified. I mean, a former NFL player, really? But look, if you voted for him, hey, you get what you voted for. So that's all I really got to say about it. But I'm going to get into the Black History Fact for today. The Black History Fact for today will be about Elijah Mccoy, who was born on May the 2nd, 1844, in Colchester, Ontario, Canada. His parents were fugitive slaves who had escaped from Kentucky to Canada through the Underground Railroad. In 1847, they returned back to America and settled in Michigan. At a very young age, Elijah Mccoy showed very strong interest in mechanics, so his parents decided to arrange for him to travel to Scotland at the age of 15 for an apprenticeship in mechanical engineering. After becoming certified as a mechanical engineer, he returned back home to Michigan. Now, Elijah Mccoy was not able to find a job as an engineer in America due to racial barriers. Skilled professional positions were not available for black people at this time, regardless of their training or background. So he decided to accept a position as a fireman and oiler for the Michigan Central Railroad. At this time, he developed his first major invention. After studying the inefficiencies inherent in the existing system of oiling axles, Elijah McCoy invented a lubricating cup that distributed oil evenly over the engine's moving parts. He obtained a patent for this invention, which allowed trains to run continuously for long periods of time without pausing for maintenance. While the majority of his inventions related to lubrication systems, he also developed designs for an iron board and a lawn sprinkler. Elijah McCoy's achievements were recognized, but his name did not appear on majority of the products that he devised. Lacking the capital with which to manufacture his lubricators in large numbers, he assigned his patent rights to his employers or sold them to investors. In 1920, Elijah McCoy formed the Elijah McCoy Manufacturing Company to produce lubricators bearing his name. That is all for today. Thank you everyone for listening to my podcast, and I hope y'all have a lovely day.